All right, we're here. This is going to be our new time, 8 p.m. I think more people are available to watch,
Yeah,
and Charlie concurs.
I concur. It's a little better for me too.
That's
Time
kind of what I
wise.
was thinking. I have time to get home, and if I'm on 7 to 3 now instead of 8 to 4, so if I have to do a tune or something quick after work, I could knock that out probably at least before 8 o'clock. So that's good. How's things been going over on your end?
Oh, not too bad. Um,
Getting
been staying
you
pretty busy. Pretty busy.
I feel that I've been
Um,
slammed with tuning.
I have had quite a bit myself. We've had some customers finally get their stuff back, though um, they've had to send in to Aces, so hopefully
Yeah,
that's fixed. We had a guy with an LS that's having had a computer problem. So
I got a weird one for you. Remember that guy we shared the similar problem with him having super high values in his VE table at like idle and everywhere, and his map sensor's fine, his BAP sensor reads fine, his injector data's matches his injectors, still can't figure it out. He sent the ECU in, they sent him a new Jackpot 2 ECU, and it's exactly the same.
hmm,
So
wow.
he's just, he's not a customer of mine. I'm just kind of helping him out. He's actually an installer and a mechanic too. Um, and he's baffled. I'm baffled.
Right. Yeah, that's
I
crazy.
kind of just having him going over thing with a fine tooth comb. It almost has to be something stupidly simple or something of that nature. I don't know.
Hmm. That's on the jackpot
Yeah, jackpot two.
on the new one, huh?
Yeah,
That's crazy. You know that like the other guy, he has that sensor error, so that makes a little more sense with it. Throwing things off. So
cool.
hopefully it's not that same issue, but
And I had
they,
another one that almost got me. Um, the battery was reading a little bit low, but nothing like out of the ordinary. When it was running and charging, it wasn't anything that was worrying me at the time. And he fried an oxygen sensor, so I had him get a new oxygen sensor. It was only going into closed loop on one bank, and then it fried that oxygen sensor. And so I had him get another one, and it fried that one. And I'm trying to figure out what the hell's going on here. And it was a drive-by wire, and it had a truck throttle body on it, and the truck throttle bodies are kind of prone to not be good with aces. And so I had him get an LS3 style throttle body and new oxygen sensors, and same deal. I was
hmm,
able to get the idle and stuff a lot better with the throttle body, but same deal there. Fried that second oxygen sensor and then put two new ones in it, and still not going into closed loop on one bank. But what ended up being a problem was the alternator.
which bank was it? I'm just curious.
Bank
Bank
two
two.
would go into closed loop, bank one would not. So that made it worse because if bank one, then you could turn it off. But
So I've seen two of the jackpot systems that are kind of doing what you're describing there, but both of those maybe just crapshoot. That's why I asked. That one, the two that I see do that. It's both been on bank two. Bank one was fine. As a matter of fact, I went in there and switched one of them over to just one single O2 sensor in the settings
mm-hmm.
and ran off the one, and we were able to tune it and get him by for a little bit until he was able to get the other one straightened out.
Yeah, and
But
that's what I started to do. But I even had him switch. I said, well, if bank two is, you know, the one that's reading and bank one's not, I just switch the wires. And it
see if it follows the sensor or not.
followed the wires. So You put a new alternator on, that fixed everything. Bank 2 went into closed loop and read fine. Bank 1 still would not go into closed loop. And it, even on one oxygen sensor should still populate one learn table, I'm pretty sure, and it's only running on closed loop on bank 2. It's not learning on bank 2 either. And the learn temperature I set to, I think, 120 degree coolant temp. It's not learning on that bank. It is making corrections, but it's not learning.
That's weird. That seems like, I'm no engineer, but that seems like a software issue there. If you're reading, your oxygen sensor's reading correctly. I don't understand what some of those.
The thing that I don't like is, so when it's not reading correctly, or in this case where bank 2's reading and bank 1's not, it won't, when it's an open loop, it doesn't show true AFR values. They just, the actuals just follow the target, and it doesn't show actual AFR values. So you can't even make an open loop tune with it like that.
Right.
Because you can't get any data. You'd almost need like an AEM oxygen sensor or something to be able to do it.
And I am going to do, like I talked about, like this guy right here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do some testing on it, and just to see how these stack up with, on the ACEs. How close are those? But yeah, I've seen, like Paul said, it could be pin wrong. That's possible. It's very possible, but it would move. Like you said, swapping them, you should see it move if it was a bad sensor. If it's pin wrong in the ECM, it should show a fault, I would think.
Yeah, there's no fault. The only fault it will show is it'll show a fault on. It shows a 127 error on the oxygen sensor that's reading correctly. It shows no fault on the one that won't even read.
So I wish you could see the heater circuit. That's something that my biggest complaint is you cannot see the heater control circuit. Like duty cycle on that. How, is it heating up? Because I've seen them go. I've got a data log a guy sent me earlier that it's sitting there running 14.7 idling, and it's like somebody flipped a switch. Nothing changed in any of the others. No sensor errors, no nothing. It was like somebody flipped a switch and it went to 22.5 AFR. Was it, and his battery voltage looked good, things like that. Did the heater circuit just crap out? Especially at idle, it may not have enough temperature in the exhaust to read correctly. Because my understanding, these wide bands, they have to be 450 to 600 degrees to read properly.
Mm-hmm.
And if that heater circuit drops out, there's no way to see that.
No.
I've looked everywhere. I mean, even in the analog to digital, I don't see anything in there. I mean, you can see the sensor reading, but you don't see anything for. So that's one thing that they really, really need to add is, what is that O2 sensor heater circuit doing? If you foul it with fuel or whatever, if it gets water, if you get water in it or something weird like that, it'd be nice to see an error on the heater circuit. Because I mean, like the data log I had from earlier, it appears like the oxygen sensor literally fell out of the exhaust pipe.
Yeah.
How do you go from reading 14.7 across the board and then it just spikes? I asked the guy jokingly, I was like, "Did your exhaust fall off?"
like the heater never shut off or something, and it fried itself or something of that nature.
I know if the battery voltage, I think they said if it drops below like 10.5 volts, that is one of the first things that it shuts down.
And that's what I think is going on with this oxygen sensor. Now, I'm not sure if running it a lower voltage like that for so long maybe did something to that other bank. He's going over everything. Like Paul said, I have him checking the harnesses and everything like that. So we'll get back and see. I did the best I could for the
right, without being there.
So, but I told him I wasn't going to give up on him. I'm not going to leave him.
Right, especially if there's a problem like that you got to work through that
Right.
neither of you can do much about. I mean, you can do your due diligence, make sure the wires are, your connectors are good, nothing's pinched or anything like that.
Yeah.
Paul said he's wanting to tune a carburetor. I actually have I have a 65 Cutlass in here that we did an engine swap on, and I went out and ordered a couple of oxygen sensor bungs.
Yep.
I'm like, we have this. Instead of pulling plugs and trying to read plugs, let's put this.
I ran one
wideband sensor in that.
I ran one on mine before when I had dual fours on it. I ran one.
That's got to be a little better than pulling spark plugs trying to tune that way.
That's the best piece of modern technology you can put on an old car. If you don't want to, if you're not going to ever do anything else, get a freaking wideband on it.
And I mean, they're a little bit pricey. This is the one that does the.
They are for a good one.
This AEM does the OBD2, so like on the 07 and newer, I can connect through the CAN bus and I can read this data right into in the HP tuners to the VCM.
Yeah.
I can actually populate that and tune with the wideband right there. That's pretty slick. I like that. I mean, tuning on narrow bands, especially on something cammed or in your wide open throttle stuff, is kind of sketchy. You guys do it.
But I was actually really surprised when I first put the wideband on my car. I was pretty surprised how well it followed. I adjusted the idle air for 14 at idle, and I didn't jet it or anything, or metering rods or anything on my Edelbrox, but it stayed pretty good. It was 12. What was that? It was 12.3 to 12.5 wide open. I mean, there really wasn't much it could be done. This followed a pretty good target AFR, really.
Right. I'm sure you probably see some big spikes on and off the throttle. You got to ignore a little bit of data, but your steady state stuff probably is pretty accurate. It should be anyway.
Mine was kind of a junk. I don't even know how accurate it was. It was an off-brand AEM gauge that I bought used off a guy just to try out.
So I've got a little cheap O-scope, one of them like $40 O-scopes. Now I'm wondering on that wideband if we could back probe that heater circuit and see the duty cycle on that, just to know, for diagnosis. Of course, that doesn't do any good if you're remote tuning, but
right.
I would be curious if we could see that duty cycle and when is it ramping up? Does it ramp up with the key on? Is it shutting off? What temperature? Between that and maybe an infrared.
Well, here's my dilemma with the ACES EFI. So you can check every single Wizard tune. Closed loop comes on at 41 degrees coolant temp, and Learn comes on at 131 degrees coolant temp.
Right.
Now, I personally don't think that it should come out of open loop at that cold of a coolant temp. I don't think it should go into open loop at least until maybe a minimum of like 120. Because if it starts making corrections is basically as soon as you fire it up, that exhaust isn't even hot enough for that sensor to be accurate.
Unless that heater circuit's working properly. Yeah, unless that heater circuit's working properly. Yeah, so I mean, especially if it does read lean because that heater circuit didn't come on, you're right. My theory is that also now it's going to read lean, so it throws even more fuel. now you get, fuel in there contaminating it or basically fouling the oxygen sensor out.
The other
And it just
problem
kind of
is
exponentially, it just spirals out of control at that point.
you if you set your closed loop activation to say 120 degrees, if you start up on a really cold day and you have after start enrichment and all that stuff,
What's happening, Wyatt?
you almost kind of need a little bit of that correction maybe to help get that out of there. I mean, I think that stuff's more so on a timer than anything, but
You talking about when it goes into closed loop or the heater
money
circuit?
into.
Which one?
I've ran it both ways. I've ran it at the default setting and I've ran it at 120, and there hasn't really been too much of a difference in it, other than when it first starts. I play with after start enrichment a lot to try to get it right, but it'll either fire up so really rich to the point where it doesn't want to idle up and run, or it'll fire up too lean to the point where it doesn't want to idle up and run, and there almost doesn't seem to be any in between there.
Right. Well, what I've told people too when I'm tuning like this AEM, when you plug this into power, this thing does, I think, a 15-second countdown before you're supposed to start your car. They tell you not to start your car because that heater circuit's coming on this, and it does a countdown. And in that 15 seconds, when that goes off, if you reach over and grab that oxygen sensor, it will burn you. So I would,
Yeah.
that may be something that a guy could, I mean, obviously be careful, but cycle the key on, before you just cycle the key on and crank it. Let that screen boot up. It takes what, 5-6 seconds for the screen to
Yep.
boot up and all that.
Yep.
I'm sure
I
at that
always
same
wait.
time this oxygen sensor's heating up too. So letting that boot up and waiting a couple seconds before you crank it's probably not a terrible idea.
Truthfully,
But
maybe I don't wait long enough to start it. I let the fuel pump quit running, which is about 6.5 to 7 seconds, and probably a few seconds after that by the time I get to the point where I'm about to turn the key. So maybe I just don't wait long enough for the
yeah.
heater to heat up.
But these things right here, they're no joke. I mean, I forgot about the fact that they get hot and literally have reached down to grab it and like, holy crap. But I think you could use that possibly if if a guy thinks that he may have an oxygen sensor problem, have him and the engine hasn't ran or at least cools down, go down there, have somebody flip the key on or flip the key on, slide underneath of it real quick and try to grab it, see if that thing's heating up. If it's
Does
not
it get
heating up,
hot clear up? Does it get hot clear up at the bung?
oh yeah, it'll get hot all the way up the shaft of the body of it will get hot.
I never tried that. I
Yeah,
should
they'll
try.
they'll they'll get hot all the way up here. This is the AEM.
Yeah.
I think it's like a Bosch 4.9 or I'm not sure what this
Yeah, it
one
should
is.
be like a 4.9 LSU or something of that
Yeah,
nature.
I know this one to replace it through AEM is like $200.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're just getting you because of that or what. But
They have the Bosch 4.9 LSU, and then there's another one that guys talk about, NTK or something like that. That's
yeah,
quite a bit more expensive than a Bosch.
yeah, this one's got the Bosch end on it.
Yeah.
It's got the kind of but for whatever reason, these are a little different connector, a little different style than the Aces uses. So that's what has me curious. But I may do some digging around and see if I can't get my oscilloscope on there and back probe that. And just my curiosity, I want to know, when is that turning on and when is it kicking out? Um, and sometimes when we're sitting there tuning, you may have the engine off with the key on. Does that oxygen, does it get hot enough that maybe that's shutting off? And then you say, okay, I made a couple changes, go ahead and crank it over. Should you maybe cycle the key, to
Wait.
restart that oxygen sensor?
Yeah.
So if you leave this one on without the engine running, after a little while, probably 2-3 minutes, this will turn off.
Okay.
But
So it'll power itself down.
And then I believe as soon as you start back up, because I've seen this too, when I crank, this one will actually come. I've seen the countdown start over again.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so I don't know,
I
I
mean, it
assume
has to
it's like
be
a rheostat or something in there.
has to be very similar in our ECUs, I would think.
Right.
Just almost because even like Paul just said, I think Paul's problem was the fact that he needed more startup fuel when he was having that problem. But he brings up a good point. Maybe some guys think they're having problems, but they're actually not waiting long enough for the sensor to heat, the O2 sensor to heat up, or maybe it's not heating up.
Yeah,
And
I just hate that we don't have any data to look at to say, yeah, that oxygen sensor is not heating up, or it is, or it isn't. That's what I hate about it. That you can't see that to confirm. Okay, yep, that heater circuit's got a fault. In my opinion, it should have the wideband, and it give us even if it's the heater circuit, give us a fault for that, or just show that the wideband has faulted instead of reading dead lean or dead rich or whatever. Typically it reads dead lean when they fault. So then it just goes crazy throwing fuel at it, trying to compensate it because, like you said, at 41 degrees, it's in closed loop. It's going to try to bring that back down to your AFR target.
And when you're on default settings, your closed loop can swing 140%, 70 one way, 70 the other. You're putting 70% of fuel on top of your VE table that may or may not already be rich.
And with a kill shot, well, any of them really, but with a kill shot, you got 4 100-pound injectors in there. Them
dumping straight down the intake.
They can dump some fuel, man, when they want to. I've seen them blowing fuel clean out of the top of them.
Yep.
Splashing 6 inches out of the hood.
Yeah.
I just wish there was a way to see that. And the only way I would know is to try to back probe and look at it that way. But yeah, I really, really wish there was a way to see that.
Something's going on in my opinion. Something is going on somewhere because too many guys are losing oxygen sensors way too prematurely.
I agree.
Now, is that a programming thing? Is that a circuit thing? Is that a electrical thing? Or is that the fact that the Wizard tune is too rich and that's killing the oxygen sensor? What do we have going on there? But I've had too many guys now losing oxygen sensors way too prematurely. They should be getting more than.
And I don't know if you probably do this. I'm pretty sure we talked about this before too. As I dial in a VE table, I also copy that into that default because I think there's times that it reverts to that default VE table when there is an oxygen sensor fault.
Ooh, that's something I never.
Do you ever go into that system default? Like if you don't select a cam in the handheld?
Yeah.
I think that when that.
I mean, there has to be a reason that table's there along with stock, mild, and race. So you're onto something there.
Yeah, if you don't select the cam, like if you just kind of ignore that when in the Wizard, it will run off that default.
Yeah.
So as I get the V table dialed in, I copy and paste that right into that system default. So is it looking at that when you do have an oxygen sensor fault? Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. The impression that I always had was it just relied strictly off of your VE table, depending on whichever cam you had selected. But you might.
Is that only for closed loop?
I was thinking that it relied off the VE for open loop, without any oxygen sensor correction. But now you have me thinking that maybe I was wrong.
I copy and pasted over there just because. I mean, if that default is there, no, hell no. The way I see it is if it would have some kind of a fault, that maybe it will. If it reverts back to that system VE for any reason, the default VE, that it would be there. Even if a guy got in and tried to do an update or something, well, then he would still need to load that tune back in. But
yeah,
I don't know. If jump started it or I don't know, something weird happened. I just copied over there. I just got in the habit of doing that. I guess I don't.
I have never done it, but
I don't know if that's right or wrong or not, but I do.
I might try that. See if anything changes from the way I have been doing it. I know sometimes I get a run of bad fucking. And I'm not blaming aces, and I'm not blaming anything. Just the universe maybe, but sometimes I get a bad run of shit, and I'm just like, God damn it, am I that bad of a tuner? And then
It makes you
that's where
question
I was
things
at.
until you find problems.
That's where I was at with the guy that had the bad alternator. That's where I was at. And then, wouldn't you know it, the next morning I had a guy call me. Well, I had him scheduled. Same exact system, except the only difference was the guy with the bad alternator was a jackpot 1, and the other guy was a jackpot 2. Both drive by wire, and I didn't even write a bass tune for this other guy. I just got on. I had him start his engine, and I just watched everything. I was like paranoid at that point, thinking I was doing something wrong.
Right.
So I didn't write a bass tune or anything. He had an older version of the software. He said it ran great on that version. I said, let's just tune it on your version. It already runs great. I'm just going to tune it on the version that you have. I'm not going to make you update and me write it on my different version and blah, blah, blah. I got on remotely. I got on his version through his computer, and I wrote that bass tune as it was sitting there running. And I was done with that car and had it more dialed in than most other jackpots I've done on a bass tune in an hour and a half. And I'm like, well, maybe it's not me then.
It's not you. I think sometimes we're battling some stuff that there's some things that obviously are going on behind the scenes that we can't see in the live data.
Yeah.
You can't, when and if I've seen some things that do some weird stuff. Like Paul asked if that was a problem, on Holly, etc. I think any
Holly goes
system,
through a lot of
any
oxygen
system that
sensors too. Yep.
you dump fuel in there on them, you're going to have problems, no matter what. I don't know that they have as much problem with killing them, but I think the way the factory setup is, or the Wizard setup is, if you're not careful with these, and that I also believe that's why they are nailed down. Aces is pretty adamant everywhere you go. If you look at their documents, to their Tech Tuesdays, or everything, they want that oxygen sensor, 8-10 inches downstream. They want another 6 or 8 inches at least minimum to a foot of pipe behind it, so you're not pulling air in. But if you look at your factory cars, you take a factory Chevy pickup truck that has, the catalytic converters right there. The oxygen sensors are right there at the collector, right where the manifold bolts on that flange.
Yeah.
So, the factory doesn't put them 10 inches down line.
Because I've seen some factory manifolds where the oxygen sensor was actually a few inches above where the downpipe bolts on.
Yeah, I've seen them right there in the manifold.
Yeah,
I believe that maybe they're trying to combat that a little bit with moving it down the pipe and trying to get it further away. But that being said, on a startup, that area of that pipe's probably going to take longer to heat up if your heater circuit's not working properly. If that, I believe it all comes back to that heater circuit, and that's my theory. Until somebody shows me, I'd love to know the difference, and I guess I'm going to have to do my own testing on that and see what it's doing and what the temperatures are.
Yeah.
It's one way to find out. I mean, that's the way I've always been is, hey, let's prove it out. Let's figure out what's wrong with it.
I think I might buy one of them AEM gauges also and put a bung right beside my bung for my Aces O2 and monitor them side by side as well, just to see.
It would be interesting, especially when you see some of that.
Because I need to buy one of them gauges anyway for my HP tuners stuff. There's no sense. I'm coming to find out there's really no sense in having HP tuners dongle especially for LS stuff if you don't have the O2 sensor ProLink cable.
Yeah, I mean, Now, if you, like I said, if you buy the one, the CAN network one, you don't, I believe it's '07 and newer,
Yeah.
you don't need that.
There's
You
a
can send
part
it through
number
CAN.
on HP tuners for the gauge, I think, isn't there?
Yeah.
In the channels, listed in the channel.
You do have to watch, like if you put them, like they have the tailpipe style that you can clamp in.
Yeah.
If you're tuning that way, you have to ignore a
The
little
lag.
bit.
Yeah, there's
There,
probably a lot of lag.
there's a bit of lag, but you really like if you were looking at, you're wanting to pull, setting in there, you had throttle up to 2,000 RPMs. You'll see there's a bit of a lag between that and everything below probably 2,000 RPMs. You really kind of have to ignore because you do get some of that oxygen coming back in, air coming back in the tailpipe. So it's not real good for your idle stuff, but above 2,000 RPMs, they do read pretty decent. Um, Better than not having a wide band because then you can
Yeah.
look at your narrow bands and your wide bands and kind of make an educated guess at that point. You'll see a delay though between them,
I'm
and,
pretty good.
if you're really really super rich or really super lean, your narrow bands are just going to bottom out, and yet that one will still read. So
I need to take on more HP tuner stuff because with as busy as I've been with Aces and even Holly stuff starting to pick up too, I don't have a lot of time, and I kind of turned down HP tuners because I can't just do it like Aces. I can't just jump on there and know every single thing there is to know about it like Aces. I'm not good enough with it to do it that confidently.
right.
Gen 3 LS stuff with HP tuners, yeah, but anything other than that, no.
Right, and there's a lot of parameters within the HP tuners that there's some stuff in there you could really get somebody's car jacked up pretty bad if there's some
Yeah,
things in there. I don't know that the engineers that designed the
maybe they don't even know.
CPU, somebody does because they've made those parameters, but there's some stuff in there. Yeah, you definitely would, especially you get into some of the transmission strategies and stuff
Seems
like on the
like
Fords.
to me it seems like there's a common pattern. You're either pro HP tuners or you're pro standalone. Like if you learned HP tuners and don't do a lot of standalone, you hate standalone. But if you do standalone and don't do a lot of factory stuff, you hate factory stuff.
So that I was
You
in
do
the HB
both.
tuners. I was in the HB tuners before,
Yeah.
and the first ACES system, I was pretty upset, like everybody else. I mean, I've seen a lot of guys upset. I had some fights with it,
Yeah.
and and I'm like, I know what I'm doing here, and this thing's not doing what I want it to for some of those things like we talked about, like that oxygen sensor and having some sticky injectors on a Killshot One, sticky
Hmm.
injectors, and didn't realize that I had sticky injectors until later. And I did a lot of tuning around some problems. We had a TPS sensor go out, and IAC quit working. They made some software changes since then that has made some vast improvements on those Killshot systems for sure. So I think they are working on making them better on the software side of it, and I do believe that they had some problems with injectors on them early ones. I think you've been through that process too, right? That's why
Yeah.
kind of why you went to the bigger injectors or different injectors.
Yeah. I've noticed a lot, a lot
It
of.
wasn't just because you were boosted, right? That's why.
Right. Right. No, I actually had one stick. I started to tune around that, and I ran into a post where a guy had a sticky injector. And I was like, damn, my car does the exact same thing. Sometimes it would start up, it wouldn't stick all the time. Sometimes it would start up pig rich, or other times it would start up lean as hell. And so I had started my BE table was tuned around that injector being lean, not firing. And then when it would fire, it was, you were picking up a whole nother injector, so it was rich as hell. And it wouldn't do it all the time. And I couldn't honestly figure out why at the time. As my system was a year old. I didn't think I'd have an injector going out.
Right.
But sure enough, I pulled all 4 of those injectors out and I tested them, clicked them, and all 3 of them worked perfect, and the one would click on and it wouldn't click back off. And then a couple minutes, it would release, and then you'd click it and it wouldn't, and then it'd stick for so if I ran the car and then shut it off and went and did something and came back, it'd be unstuck. But when the car was running and it was open, it was stuck open. I'm pretty sure is how it was working. But
yeah, I think they've made some, and I think some of that stuff they even fixed with software. But I know the Killshot ones they had some issues with.
my timing control.
They sent me a Killshot 2 for my customer because they said, I posted a video of an injector stuck super bad. I mean, it was pouring out the throttle shafts all over the place. I mean, it was bad to the point this customer went to crank it. She sent me a video and it went rip, rip. I'm like, stop, don't crank it anymore. I mean, it hydrolocked it. It was dumping so much fuel. Geez. Yeah, it looked like a toilet bowl on that one injector. It just filled it. It was filling up over it, filled the engine up. We towed it back here to the shop, pulled the drain plug. First thing I did is pulled the drain plug out, and we drained almost a gallon of gasoline out. So
I did that before with antifreeze.
Yeah, it was pretty ugly. I mean, since then they sent me out a Killshot 2 and plugged it in. We had to do a little bit of tuning, obviously set the IAC stuff. Since then it's been pretty legit. She hasn't had any problems so far with it. So we fought quite a bit of problems on. Yes, that's it. Customer's local to me.
Yeah, those injectors I bought were fuel injector connection, with a really nice data sheet, and they're doing great. And people have asked me. I've had a couple people ask me so far about how the sealed bearings are doing. I've had those sealed bearings in there, throttle shaft bearings in there for probably, just an estimate, 250, maybe 300 miles. And that's countless wide open throttle pulls and idling, everything. Wide open throttle under 10 psi boost is when it was leaking really bad. It would actually pool on the intake. And I have not had a drop come out since I put those sealed throttle shaft bearings in. It's not even wet around the spring or nothing. It's completely.
Well, I mean, I think if you buy a blow-through carb, they come with. I mean, most manufacturers are going to come with sealed bearings in them on a carb, right?
Yeah, if you buy it, even if you build a blow-through carb, that's a lot of what you do is seal off the throttle shafts, get the the nitrogen-filled floats. And then there's actually some tiny little freeze plugs and some epoxy that's for a Holley carb.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that's basically what you're doing is sealing everything off so you can put pressure to it.
Right. So Paul said something about wish they'd get rid of that connector, the CAN cable, and go to an OBD2 connector. It would be kind of nice. Yeah, that CAN cable can be kind of a pain in the butt, especially in the cold weather. Have you ever tried to take one of those off in 40-degree or colder weather?
Yeah, they get kind of stiff.
They are tough.
My actual connector's so worn out from me swapping that there's no pin anymore. There's no latch on it, no nothing. Mine just, actually I like it better that way. It just pushes in and pulls apart. I don't have to worry about that latch or anything because it's so worn out.
Right.
But I've had the same cable since I bought my Killshot, and it's damn near been 2 years ago, maybe. Yeah.
So you can buy, and I don't know why you couldn't do this. So I've always got some weird stuff that I'm kind of a weird guy there. So like your OBD2 splitter.
Yeah.
So, and then this is just a 2-wire. I don't know if you can see it very well.
Yeah.
It's an OBD2 connector. And you can buy both sides of this, and you can get them with just, and this only has 2 wires on it. That's just for your high-low can.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I suppose if a guy really, really wanted to, you could probably get the male and the female. You could cut the high and low can wires,
And splice it.
and splice it in. Of course, I believe that cable is a 4-wire, so you would have to use one of these other pins, corresponding pins, because it has a power and a ground, and then the high and low can network. So just
Yeah.
you could literally wire up one of these to that. I've never done it. I'm sure you'd probably avoid some warranty if you cut that cable.
I know there's a lot of guys that make those. They make a switched splitter. I've seen where
I'm talking for like the Aces.
But like between the CAN cable and the handheld, they'll make a splitter and just leave them both plugged in and just flip a switch.
Oh, really?
I don't know if you've
I've
ever
never seen
seen
anybody
that.
do. I haven't seen anybody do that.
Yeah, there's some videos on it I saw. They basically build a little box with a switch on it, and then it has CAN cable and handheld cable, and then when you flip the switch, it just powers whichever cable, you know.
Yes, the CAN network for the Aces is the same type of CAN network that most of your automotive run. Till you get into some of this newer stuff, it's still. So I think you could get away with it if a guy really wanted to. You could put your connector under the dash, and you could have one you can plug one of your handheld in, or then unplug it and pull it out, stick it on the other one for your laptop.
That'd be a lot, more convenient, I think.
I think you could wire it up. It'd be kind of slick if you were like yourself. You're sure every time you get in your car, you're probably with the laptop more so.
Well, ever since the last time I plugged my handheld in and it changed my whole tune, I'm actually debating on just getting a Windows tablet and running that for a dash and just running the PC software. To be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not going to run that handheld anymore.
So you just plugged it in and it changed?
Yes. We went for like an hour or so drive, and my laptop died, so I stopped, turned my car off, plugged my handheld in, fired it back up, and it just started going mad lean at cruise. And then even on the learn table, it was saying that it was adding 9% of fuel in cruise. And so I was like, well, maybe it's just not, maybe I just didn't have those cells tuned to be cruising on interstate, because I don't do a lot of interstate driving. So
hang on, my air compressor just kicked on.
That's a loud bastard.
Okay, sorry.
So I got on there and I added fuel. I added fuel where it wanted fuel, and then I drove it again with my laptop, and it wanted me to pull all that fuel out that I had put in it. So I'm just not going to run the damn thing.
That's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of always been that way. I've had it where I changed things in the tune with my laptop and then plugged the handheld in, powered everything down. And that handheld still will like hold the same values for certain things that I had changed in the laptop software. I've had it do that too. So.
Oh no, I was just that is weird. So I'm gonna try to do some testing on that oxygen sensor. It just popped in my head. A simple little cheap voltage, like a little digital voltage gauge, volt gauge. If you tapped into the wires to the heater circuit on that, you would be able to see that light up and see the voltage.
Yeah, and then you just have to do some math to figure out duty cycle.
Right, but I mean, at least just quick and dirty. While you're running down the road, you can look down and see. You can see when you turn the key on if that thing goes to battery voltage or if it's at 2 or none.
Right.
That would give you at least an indicator.
that'd be a yes or a no anyway.
Or even a small little LED or something, something that didn't take a whole lot of draw. You wouldn't want something that was going to mess with it, but just a small
Something
little
that,
LED that lit up when there's
that
power going to that heater circuit would work.
yeah, because the heater circuit runs off of battery voltage, right? And then the actual sensor
Yes.
circuit's 5 volts.
I think the sensor's 12 volt as well.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure it is.
Okay. Yeah, so you could put like a little LED on there that lit up at.
Any any time that duty cycle's on, it should come. I mean, it may be dim to brighter, but I'm going to do some research on that. I've got one sitting here on the bench that needs to go on my boat, but I may do a little playing with that. I want to see. I would
I
be
have
curious.
I have
Some way
two
to know.
I have two spare oxygen sensors here that I could destroy if I needed to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to void the warranty on the ECM. I'm sure if I go back, probably they've done heard me on here say
He's not going to do it.
it.
This is for testing.
Right. I think it'd be nice to know. When does this cycle, especially like that key on,
How
how
long does it heat
long,
for before it shuts off? Yeah.
right? Or kicks down. Maybe it goes to 100% duty cycle or whatever, and kicks down to 20% or something.
Just to like the
Just to
initial
maintain
heat and
temperature.
then maintain temp. Yeah.
I'm gonna do some playing. Hopefully next week I'll have an answer on that. I'm gonna do some checking on that.
Next time I turn my key on, I'm gonna pop the hood before I do, and then I'm gonna turn my key on and feel that sensor and see if it gets hot. I didn't realize. I thought just the tip got hot. I didn't realize you could feel it the whole way up in the
Well,
body.
I mean, if it is down there at the tip, the heating element, I believe, but at 450, 500 degrees, it's going to
Yeah.
heat the whole, it's
Yeah.
going to heat the whole body of that. I know at least this AEM, if you touch the body of that thing, I went to unscrew it and I was surprised that you don't want to do that with your bare fingers. Even though the engine hadn't run, I touched it and I was like, oh, wow, that thing's
What
warm.
you're saying is, if you really needed to light your cigarette, you could pull your oxygen
Uh,
sensor out, ground it,
I
turn
don't
the
know
key
about
on.
that, but it gets pretty daggone hot. Hot enough you won't leave your hand on it. I'll promise you that. I mean, it's not going to leave like third-degree burns, but you won't. I bet the body of that still gets 150, 200 degrees.
I'm not using a thermo gun, Paul. I'm gonna burn my fingers like a real man.
Yeah, just 'cause Charlie told you to. Yeah.
Actually, funny story.
If yours
I
gets hot enough to actually burn you, I'm sorry. I mean, but
I
mine
burnt
didn't get hot enough to burn you.
I burnt my index finger so many times that my fingerprint thing on my keyboard won't read my finger anymore.
Apparently, my hands are so rough from working on stuff. See, they're like permanently
Yeah,
stained. Mine doesn't work either. So I
yeah.
added another finger and it worked for a couple of days and now it doesn't work. So
I'm gonna have to switch it to my right hand. My left hand's the one taking all the burns, and
I guess if I want to rob a bank or something now, I don't have any
I don't have.
fingerprints.
Yeah, I don't have much of a fingerprint left on it, and it's kind of not coming back. So I don't know if I
Well,
permanently disabled it or what.
so if don't trust me because like I said, I grabbed a hold of it. It's enough that you won't hold on to it, but if yours would happen to burn you, I mean, it's not my fault.
No, I'm okay with that.
It may,
I've had
but
way worse.
mine got hot enough. I'm telling you, within like 10 seconds, you won't hold on to it very long.
Right.
It was enough. You can screw it out real fast, but you're not gonna like grab it and just hold
The
it in
only
your
thing
hand.
I'm concerned with is if my engine, my exhaust is stone cold, and I turn the key on and that oxygen sensor's warm to the touch, then you know,
It's I would say it's working
yeah,
properly at that. That's something that may be good when we're tuning. Especially if we suspect a guy has a problem. Say, hey, slide under there, flip the key on, and grab hold of that thing. See if you can feel it warming up.
yeah,
Careful, it might burn you, but that would be a quick, dirty way to tell at least if it's heating.
I agree. Well, what are you thinking here? It's about 9 o'clock. Should we wrap her up or?
Yeah, I've got a ton of work to do. I am so buried right now; it ain't even funny. So I'm going to be pulling late nights all this week.
Yeah,
I'm working first and second shift, I guess.
I'm getting an extra hour now of daylight after my 9 to 5, so I'm getting off at 3 now. So I got an extra hour after work. Well, maybe I can. I still don't ever go to bed early though. I always find myself with revisions and
Yeah, that's when I do most of it. It's
troubleshooting
usually
and all that kind of stuff.
it's like 10 o'clock at night when I have time to really sit down and look at data logs and things. But yeah, it was good talking to you guys.
Yes, sir.
Again,
We'll talk to
I'll
you
hopefully
guys.
have some data next week. I'm gonna do some research on that and see if I can't figure out a little more on that oxygen sensor. 'Cause it'd be good to know.
If I have a
It could be
band-aid on
beneficial.
my finger next Monday,
Mm.
my oxygen sensor heater works. All right, guys. We'll talk to you later.
All right, see ya.